Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror action movie called Latency. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens as Hannah, a former competitive pro gamer, tests a virtual reality shooting game inside her apartment. She plays it for a while and points out a few glitches so that they can be fixed before the game is officially launched to the public. It is revealed that Hannah works as a video game tester, which doesn't always pay well. However, it's the perfect job for her because she suffers from agoraphobia, making her deeply afraid of leaving her apartment. After spending the whole day testing the game, she decides to comfort herself by playing Tetris on her old Game Boy. A mailman soon knocks on her door and announces that he's leaving a package outside. Once he leaves, Hannah opens the door just enough to peek out and grab the package. At that moment, a little girl who presumably lives on the same floor appears in the corridor and asks to enter the apartment, but Hannah immediately says no and goes back inside. She then notices that the package is from a futuristic tech company named Omnia, who have recently ventured into the gaming world. Later that day, Hannah calls her friend Jen, who lives upstairs, and invites her for the unboxing. A few hours later, Jen arrives with several bags of groceries that she's bought for her friend. The two then open the package and find a very strange-looking headband and no instruction manual. We haven't had those since 20 years ago, so that's not surprising. As soon as Hannah presses the button on the device, it automatically connects to her computer. She logs to the device and an AI voice welcomes her to Omnia, asking her to put on the headband. Once Hannah does that, the AI explains that the device can read, measure, and decode characteristic patterns in her brain. So, when it comes to gaming, her reaction time will be reduced to 0. But first, they need to calibrate the device, so Hannah starts working on several mental exercises as shown by the AI. After a few exercises, the machine learns how she thinks, and Hannah no longer needs her keyboard to operate her computer. She gets so obsessed with this new tech that she doesn't even touch the food that Jen cooked for her. After a while, Hannah's landlord knocks on the door asking for the rent money. She is so engrossed in the game that Jen asks him to come back later that week. The friends spend a few more hours together and later Jen leaves, but Hannah goes straight back to the AI and works hours on end to calibrate her mouse, headphones, and microphone. Whenever she gets sleepy, she chugs down tons of energy drinks to stay awake. This causes the AI to point out that her reaction time is slowing and that she should probably rest. In the next scene, Hannah reluctantly goes to sleep, but the device keeps on reading her brain patterns, and the speaker starts playing lots of static noises in the apartment. When she wakes up, she goes to the bathroom to wash her face, but upon staring at the mirror, Hannah is horrified to see that her gums are bleeding. At this moment, there's a knock on the door, and the little girl from yesterday begins talking from the corridor. She asks Hannah to play with her because there aren't any other kids in the building. Hannah explains she can't and shares stories of her childhood when her mother wouldn't let her out of the house. She had to learn how to play alone, which is why she became a fan of video games and got addicted to Tetris. She then offers to lend the Game Boy to the little girl, but the latter isn't answering anymore, thinking that the child must have gone back to her home, or that Gen Alpha just thinks Tetris is boring as shit. Hannah goes to her bedroom. There, she searches for an old box in her closet and starts looking at childhood pictures. She cries as she remembers playing with her dad under the rain. It is then revealed that Hannah has still kept a tennis ball from those days. That afternoon, Jen visits again, and the two play catch with the ball. This is done so the headband can calibrate to Hannah's reflexes and depth perception. Shortly after, she mentions that the next exercise is about pain perception. She asks Jen to gently cut her forearm, but the latter angrily refuses and leaves. Therefore, Hannah takes matters into her own hands and does the deed with a kitchen knife. Thankfully, it is enough, and this finally finishes the calibration process. The AI then explains that the device will continue to gather more data as Hannah uses it. Afterward, Hannah takes care of her small wound and finally eats something before going back to the computer. She starts playing the game normally, but soon she stops using her hands, controlling everything with just her mind thanks to the device. Just as promised, her reaction time is flawless, and she easily wins every match. Meanwhile, in her bedroom, a mysterious hand grabs the ball that Jen had placed there. Hannah keeps playing for a few more hours, and finally decides to enter a tournament under a pseudonym. At this moment, the ball appears on the floor behind her, and when she's about to pick it up, she's startled by a sudden knock on the door. It's the landlord, who is asking for the rent money again. While Hannah goes to ask him for more time, the ball floats up and glitches until it disappears into thin air. The landlord says Jen promised the money many days ago, which surprises Hannah. She thinks Jen talked to him yesterday, but soon realizes she's lost track of time. Thankfully, the landlord turns out to be understanding and gives her one more week. After he departs, Hannah returns to the living room and notices the ball has disappeared, but doesn't think much of it. Later that night, she has a nightmare where her mouth is bleeding heavily and her face changes into a monstrous mess. This disturbs her greatly, so she activates her phone using the AI and calls Jen. Hannah asks her to come over in the morning, apologizing for her earlier behavior. While she is distracted on the phone, the ball, which had vanished earlier, suddenly reappears. Following this, Hannah goes to her living room and puts on a set of VR glasses. She then mindlessly waves her hand over the ball and discovers that this action causes it to virtually disappear. In fact, she can even transform the ball into a bird, which flies around before returning to the floor and becoming a ball again. Can the ball also become happiness? No. It can't do that. The next morning, Jen comes by while Hannah is working on her computer to make it run faster. She wants the hardware to be able to keep up with her new gaming reaction speed. Hannah is desperate to win the tournament, especially since the prize is $250,000. She also convinces her friend to bet money on her, since her winning is pretty much guaranteed with her new headband. 6 hours later, the tournament finally starts, and Hannah destroys every opponent without even trying. But before the final round of qualifying, she sees an arm reaching out of the computer screen and attempting to grab her. This triggers her anxiety, so she asks Jen to play for her while she takes a break. After taking the headband off, Hannah gets in the bathroom and takes some medicine to stop an oncoming panic attack. Just then, she feels her arm itching and checks under her band-aid. Hannah is horrified to discover that the simple cut from earlier has turned into a nasty wound. While she cries in the bathroom, Jen reveals that she has made it to the next round. Once Hannah comes out, they play retro video games, and she talks about the little girl from the same floor. Jen finds this weird because she doesn't know of any children in the building, but their conversation takes a different turn when Hannah confesses that she got her agoraphobia from her mother. She feels terrible that she has to live her life in constant fear like her mother did. Jen kindly offers to help her step out of the apartment, but Hannah doesn't think it is the right time yet. That night, Jen sleeps on the couch while Hannah continues playing Tetris. Neither of them notice that the walls in the apartment have come apart into strange flying cubes. The next morning after Jen leaves for work, Hannah hears some chatter and discovers a shadow outside the door. Suddenly, the little girl speaks, and Hannah offers her a video game. But when she turns around, the door is wide open. This terrifies Hannah, but she gathers her courage and dares to step out on the corridor. She hears giggling sounds from nearby and hesitantly takes a few steps further. Suddenly, the door closes behind her, and the lights start flickering. A ghost woman then appears in the corridor, screaming like a banshee. A horrified Hannah keeps on hitting the door until she finally bursts inside and quickly closes it again. She has a breakdown and thinks that it was her phobia making her hallucinate. After calming down, Hannah rejoins the tournament and reaches the top 3 in rankings. She soon gets tired and falls asleep on the chair, but as soon as she does so, the computer shuts down and the darkness takes over the apartment. Hannah wakes up and looks around her to find her room empty, but when she turns back, the little girl appears out of nowhere. The ghost of the woman also shows up and starts screaming, causing Hannah to hallucinate and float. Thankfully, she comes back to her senses a few seconds later, and everything seems to be back to normal. Hannah brushes off the incident and goes back to her tournament. She then reaches the final round and eventually wins it to become the champion. But Hannah is so tired that she falls asleep on the chair once more. She soon has a vision of an injured Jen holding a blood-stained screwdriver. When Hannah wakes up, she has no idea what parts were real, so she calls Jen on her number, but hears the ringtone coming from her own kitchen table. Hannah thinks her friend must have forgotten the phone and goes to retrieve it, but to her shock, she sees her laptop and a new package waiting on the table. Suddenly, she gets a notification on her laptop announcing that the prize money has been sent. It is a huge sum of money, and Hannah immediately sends the pending rent to her landlord. Later, the landlord knocks on the door and confirms he got the payment. Hannah takes the chance to ask about Jen, who lives upstairs, but the landlord says he hasn't seen her in a while. Following this, Hannah spends several hours in front of the computer. It has now become her entire personality, and she doesn't know what else to do. When Hannah's arm starts itching again, she checks the wound, only to discover it's festered into a big, disgusting mess. Despite this, she decides to keep herself busy by playing with the ball and recollecting the memories she spent with her mom. Although Hannah wasn't allowed to go out, she enjoyed being with her mother all the time. Sometime later, a new package arrives, and Hannah quickly grabs it without bothering to sign the waiver. Inside, she finds the tournament trophy, but her eyes suddenly fall on the new package that is on the kitchen table. Hannah notices a card underneath that says, "For when you're ready," from Jen. She then opens the box and discovers a brand new pair of shoes. While she is trying them on, Jen's phone gets a call from an unknown number, but Hannah ignores it. Suddenly, the speakers in the room start playing strange whisperings from a woman. Jen also appears in the room, and Hannah rushes to hug her, but something is off as she notices Jen's clothes are wet. This scares Hannah, and she slowly steps back, only to discover a blood-stained screwdriver in her own hand and a stab wound in Jen's stomach. Hannah rushes to grab a phone to call for help, but when she looks back, Jen has disappeared. Frightened, she falls to her knees and realizes the Omnia device is using all her trauma to get in her head. She immediately takes it off, but the device somehow keeps appearing on the back of her head. As a last resort, Hannah decides to leave the apartment and runs to her living room to pack her things. She then takes a moment to gather her strength to fight her fears, but suddenly, a mysterious hand pulls at her jacket, and Hannah sees a glitching body being dragged into the bathroom. She cautiously follows it and comes across a horrific sight: Jen's body rotting in the bathtub. Shortly after, the entire apartment begins to change, and it is revealed that the place is a mess which has not been cleaned for several weeks. Hannah checks all the rooms, finding them dirty with rotten food in the kitchen. This makes her realize that she's been in some sort of hallucination for weeks without noticing the passage of time. Terrified, she finally leaves the apartment and runs through the stairs before her phobia can get to her. Hannah eventually makes it to Jen's apartment and goes in using a spare key from under the welcome mat. But when she turns on the light, she finds herself back in her own place. Hannah watches in shock as a vision shows her stabbing Jen. Then the duplicate Hannah turns around and says, "Welcome to Omnia," before transforming into a horrible monster. A freaked out Hannah runs out of the apartment as she sees the monster coming after her. A chase then ensues through the stairs, and with every step, one more monster joins the first one. Fortunately, Hannah makes it to the roof, but stops running when she feels the rain falling on her body. After years of being inside, it reminds her of better times from her childhood when she used to play with her father in the rain. This helps her calm down, and when the monsters arrive, Hannah jumps from the roof. The moment her body hits the ground, she reappears in her apartment and sees the ghost of the woman waiting for her. Hannah finally realizes that the ghost is her mother's spirit, who does not want her to go outside, just like during her childhood. At this critical moment, someone loudly knocks on the door, making the ghost disappear. Turns out the police have arrived and they want Hannah to come out. They suspect that she has killed Jen and want to question her. Inside, Hannah has a breakdown and promises to never leave the apartment again, if the spirit doesn't harm anyone. In the end, the police and the paramedics force open the door and find Jen's rotting body, but Hannah still doesn't acknowledge them and keeps playing Tetris on her Game Boy. When the cops finally arrest her, they remove the Omnia device and try to drag her out. This causes her to scream in horror, making the entire apartment shake. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.